Hi, I'm Cindi McGee. Today I'm creating two veneers experimenting with the new Pearls alcohol inks by Adirondack. I'm really pleased with the results, even though they came out a bit different than I originally expected. I started by rolling a sheet of white Primo to a number 3, and I'm using regular rubbing alcohol for the first step. I poured it into a little separate container and I'm going to use a cotton ball to apply it. I couldn't wait to experiment with the new Adirondack Pearls alcohol inks. For the first veneer, I chose a variety of bright colors that I thought would be a really fun effect. You can use whatever colors you wish for this technique. Make sure you shake them well so that you can fully incorporate that pearlescent effect into the ink. I covered the entire surface of the white sheet of clay with the regular rubbing alcohol before I started. While that rubbing alcohol is still fluid, I started dropping on my pearlized alcohol inks totally randomly here and there. Started with the first color, then moved on to each additional color, filling in the entire surface until I was happy with the result. At this point, my inner mad scientist took over, and I wanted to see what would happen if I added some more of that regular rubbing alcohol. So I'm just randomly sort of squirting it over the surface and allowing those colors to blend. I went back and added a few more drops of the pearlized alcohol ink over the top. Then you want to let it completely dry. I got impatient, so I used my blow dryer and just off the top of it. I didn't get too close, just used it to gently dry the rest of that ink. Then I used a dry cotton ball to just dab away any puddles of ink that were remaining. The next step was to overlay the alcohol ink background with a stenciled image. This is a Judican stencil, and I'm just using gold metallic paint to add the design over that colorful background. Here's a little closer look at it once I've added the paint. Now take note of the colors that you see there. It looks a bit different than it did when we started with those bright colors. Something I discovered is that when it was completely dry and I came back a couple of days later, the colors had changed yet again. At this point, they almost have more of a turquoise and pink and purple effect, as you can see. This is the actual veneer I just made using those other colors after resting for 2 days. My next mad scientist experiment is going to be to actually create something and bake it immediately after silkscreening or stenciling it to see if those colors change that way. I wanted to try to do the technique a little different way, and I'm using some of my favorite peacock color shades to do this one. Same thing, I rolled a sheet of Primo clay and I'm going to start with the plain rubbing alcohol over the surface. Then I start adding my inks in the same way, just one color at a time, randomly allowing them to blend together. And you can see it's very bold and very bright at this point. I did not come back over this version with the additional layer of the regular alcohol ink, and I did not dry it. I just let it completely air dry. And I love it, but when it dried, again, it did something totally different. It looks totally different. It's still very pretty, but it fades back. And the metallic effect remains, but the colors become more sort of a watercolor effect. Instead of the stencil for this one, I'm using my Cindy's Peacock silkscreen from Create Along and the same gold metallic paint. And I'm just going to create a pattern with my silkscreen. I'm going to start with a first row, let them dry, and then I'm going to continue to silkscreen them in between each other to fill up the surface. Do make sure that you wash your silkscreen between applications so that while the paint is drying from each individual application, it's not drying on your silkscreen also. Create-along silkscreens can be used right after washing. They do not have to be thoroughly dry. And here's a bit of a closer look at this veneer after it's been silkscreened and after the inks have been allowed to set for 3 days. You still get those colors and you get that metallic pearlized shine, but it's much different than what you started with. I'll be creating some polymer trading coins and some jewelry with these veneers, and I can't wait to share the results with you on the Polymer Clay Tribe Facebook page. Join us and share your work to inspire others. Need more inspiration? Check out the Polymer Clay TV blog for tons of creative ideas.